Hi everyone and welcome to our conference on the Holocaust. We're aware that a lot of things happened during this period of time. That's why we had to restrain and talk to you about a few aspects only. So, today, we're going to talk to you about what other countries and people knew about the extermination camps and how they reacted. Extermination camps were used by the Nazis from 1941 to 1945. To murder Jews and, on a smaller scale, Roma. Chelmno was the first extermination camp to be established in December 1941. Its purpose was to murder the Jews in the surrounding area. The Auschwitz-Birkenau was put in operation in March 1942. It initially had one gas chamber in Auschwitz I camp, but it was soon expanded. By 1943, 4 new crematoria attached to gas chambers had been built in Auschwitz II. Approximately 1.1 million people were murdered in the Auschwitz gas chambers. Everyone sat in their home in silence, windows shut as tightly as possible. How much people knew about what was going on? Of course people knew, said a woman who would live near the occupation as a child. The mass exterminations of prisoners and incineration of thousands of bodies was no secret. Some describe having to live with the stench of bodies being incinerated at Auschwitz, but keeping quiet to survive. Large numbers of ordinary people, including women, were involved in looting and plundering, picking up goods thrown out onto the streets and benefiting from the expropriation of Jewish people. While some were egged on by peer group pressure, many young people believed the Nazi view that the Jewish are misfortune and that it was time to put that back in their place. Other people, however, were heard to mutter that they were ashamed to be German and were critical of the violence against people and destruction of property. But why did so few stand up? Why did bystanders remain largely silent? Actually, most of them did nothing because they were scared. If violence is initiated from the above in a state where active political opposition has been crushed, it is extremely difficult to engage in effective resistance. Many political activists had already immigrated, often after early spells in concentration camps, some seeking to fight on as best they could from aboard. After years of repression, some dissenters were cowed into sullen silence. Despite many laws against those aiding Jews in territories of Nazi Germany, some Poles still risked their life trying to help. While some local people recall residents bravely sheltering Jews in their home, others speak of Jews betrayed to the Nazis by their neighbors. Some also tried to benefit from the situation financially, either by trading information to the Germans or by blackmailing Jews in hiding. This was punished by death by the Polish underground. Some Poles benefited from the death of Jewish countrymen by acquiring their properties. People digged around the camps after 1945 searching for gold. Those Germans who, after the war, will cast themselves into roles of innocent bystanders and even claiming they had never heard anything about the Holocaust. They may have not intended or wanted to contribute to this outcome, but without their attitudes, mentalities, and actions, it would have been virtually impossible for murder on this scale to have taken place in the way that it did. What Jews knew about the final solution on the Jewish question. The Nazis did not publish the minutes of the January 1942 conference at Wannsee, nor did they announce the final solution on the Jewish question. How then Jews learned about all the massacres in distant places and gassings in the death camps? After all, almost all Jews in occupied Poland were in ghettos in 1942 with little or no access to newspaper or radio broadcasts. They did, however, heard stories and rumors, often based on reports from the few Jews who managed to escape from deportation trains, shooting sites, and killing centers. They sometimes sent couriers to other ghettos to find out if the rumors are true and to report on events in their own community. These couriers were more than messengers who carried a few letters from one city to another. They also smuggled documents, underground newspapers, and even weapons into the sealed ghettos of Poland. Many of them were women, mainly because most Jewish men were circumcised unlike non-Jews, and so were easily identified. When they heard about mass shootings or death camps, Jews in ghettos struggled to figure out how to respond. Many Jews who heard stories could simply not believe them or assume that the escapees who told them had lost their minds. They believed that Jews who had disappeared or been arrested were sent into labor camps, not murdered.
On summer 1941, 2 years after the Second World War started, on some German radio, some British intelligence agents hear something describing mass murders going all around Eastern Europe. On August 14, 1941, the British Prime Minister, back then, Winston Churchill, talked about it publicly. But it was only in May 1942 that people actually learned about the camps all around the world, because of BBC London, which broadcast information about the concentration camps all around the globe. In 1944, the first camp to be ever entered by the Occidentals was the Ohrdruf camp. In April, a few camps were entered by American troops as well, such as Buchenwald, Dachau, Bergen-Belsen, and Mauthausen camp. A few months later, in September, we're still in 1944, the Soviet army enters a camp, the Lublin-Majdanek camp. In November, another camp was liberated. The Struthof camp is liberated, but it's already empty. The other camps were liberated a bit later, just like Auschwitz, by the Red Army on January 27, 1945. The best way for Allies to help the prisoners was to win the war, which was their main priority back then. But on January 27, 1945, 4 young soldiers arrived by horse to help the prisoners. The next day, about 20 Polish men and women came to help clean where the dead bodies were. By noon, a child shows up with a cow destined to the prisoners, which was called by the Russian. On the third day, a young Jew Russian arrives to transport the prisoners to the former Auschwitz camp, the Stammlager. On April 11, 1945, at the Buchenwald camp, the International Military Committee arrives to give food, clothes, and medical aid to the survivors. At the Bergen-Belsen camp, the Britons call medical aid and give food, such as meat and vegetables, to the prisoners. But they needed more than that, which is why they called to get more rice, fresh milk, and cake. The Britons also helped with the inhumation of the corpses. People found out about camps. Some allies thought that they could maybe bomb the camps, but some people thought it was really bad idea because they feared that the Jews would be treated even worse than they were already by the Germans. Lots and lots of people were traumatized by the events, especially the prisoners who entered the camp. I found an article about a Soviet soldier who entered the camp on the Auschwitz camp on January 27, 1945. He was a 21-year-old lieutenant back then, and he remembers their faces and their eyes, which betrayed their ordeal. At first, he says that there was weariness on both parts, but they eventually found out who they were, and they let them in. He feels that there was a grim sense of relief. The Soviet army felt that they were doing a good deed. He saw emaciated, impoverished, and tortured people. He also saw destroyed towns, villages, and some people suffering. I think it is obviously needless to say that people from all around the world were terrified and qualified the events as horrible and atrocious. Thank you guys so much for your attention. I really hope you liked it. If you have any more questions, please let us know and we'll try our best to answer them. Thank you.